everyone, it's Joanne here at Apple Tree Studio. I'm here to give you another lockdown lesson and I'm hoping that I'm inspiring you with these lessons during this lockdown period. Today we're going to paint a nice simple landscape. In fact, here it is, it's right behind me here. This lovely, luscious landscape. And the techniques that I want to show you today are basically watercolour washes that are the backbone of painting. They are so important, so please don't ignore them. Don't give up. I've been there. I started to do the washes, they just weren't working for me. I would get so frustrated and think, I'm never painting again. Please don't do that. Please keep practicing and they'll become second nature to you. The washes that we're going to look at today are a variegated wash. Some call it a wet into wet wash, and that is allowing colour to mix on the paper. I use these washes an awful lot, not just for landscapes, but I use them for florals, for animals. In fact, they kind of creep into everything that I paint. So have a go with me and practice them. You know, if you don't succeed straight away, then keep going. What I do suggest is if you want to practice these washes is instead of using a big large sheet of paper and getting all really nervous about that, use little tiny pieces of paper to build your confidence up. Are you ready to get going? Can I ask you a favour before we get going? Can you see the red subscribe button at the bottom? If you could please press that for me, that would mean an awful lot. So thanks in advance and let's get going. Okay, so let's get started on our simple landscape. Before I get going, I want to talk about the materials that I'm going to be using today. I'm using the Saunders Waterford paper. I'm using 3 colours, we'll get back to that in a minute. A size 8 and a size 12 brush. My little palette, and you can see I've already got some paint in there, and my water container. Let's go back to the 3 primary things. It's amazing how many things you can paint with 3 primaries. Today I'm using the Cadmium Yellow, the Rose Madder and the Manganese Blue. Before we get started, it is worth thinking about the 3 primaries that you'd like to use. You don't necessarily have to use these. These are some examples of 3 primaries and looking at how they react with one another and produce secondary colours. Again, some nice little examples here of 3 primaries. And here I've made a note as well just to remind myself of what I can achieve with these 3 primaries. So it's worth experimenting with different primaries to see what you like best. But for this demonstration, these are the colours we're going to be using. There's going to be no drawing at all in this demonstration. We're just going to look at producing watercolour washes, which are, of course, the backbone of any painting, especially watercolour painting, obviously. And I say it's for beginners, but I think a lot of intermediates really should practice this as well. We're going to be producing a variegated wash today in both parts, sky and land. And basically that variegated just means 3 colours or any colours kind of mixing together on the paper. So with that in mind, let's get started. What we're going to do first is we're going to produce the sky using just the 3 primaries that we've chosen. Be prepared for moving this board around a lot because you really do need to be in control of big washes like this. And I think it's probably easier if I show you rather than explain. First of all, there's 2 different ways of doing this as well. You could put the wet paint onto the dry paper, or we can do this. We can wet our paper first to give an even flow of paint. Now, the problem, or not the problem, but if you are wetting your paper first, you've got to ask yourself, how is that going to affect the washes that you've already mixed? I can hear you thinking about that one. Well, if we wet the paper and then we put our washes, our pre-mixed washes into that, it's going to dilute the colour, isn't it? So your washes will therefore be weaker in colour because you've wet the paper first. So that's something else, isn't it, to keep in mind. So if your washes are just right on dry paper, if you've tested them, that means they'll be even lighter on a wet paper. Okay. So we've wet the whole paper through. Let's start with the blue. So I'm going to take a nice big dunk into that blue. And we're just going to start to pull that in. Doesn't matter what direction you go in, we're just going to pull it into this top half. Make it quite dark. And now we're going to allow that colour to mix into another one. So we need to clean our brush. We could put the yellow next, put the red next. I'm going to go for the red. I'm going to push that in and allow that colour to blend with the blue. These are washes that you should be practicing all the time, and they're not easy. I don't think they're easy at all. They take a lot of practice, but just don't give up. I've been there where I thought, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not wasting any more paper. It's never going to work for me. I just can't do this. We've all been there. But it's like anything else. The more you practice, the better you're going to get. And I think ideally what I would do is practice on little sheets of paper first, rather than get all nervous on a big sheet of beautiful paper and be terrified of ruining it. Okay, so there's a lot of water on this paper now, gallons of it. And if I left my paper, my board here, to sit flat, things would not happen. You are the master of your painting. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to move it around a bit. And I'm sorry if you can't really see what I'm doing on camera, but I'm telling that paint where to go. I'm telling the yellow to come down to the bottom, so I'm tipping my board towards me. Oh, and then I'd like some of that orange into the blue, pinks, to create the pinks. That's lovely, look at that. And you can see it's still moving around. Now, I've got to a stage where there's a lot of water on this side, so I'm going to take a clean cloth and just lift that excess water away. And then I can continue to do this, to move my board around. Look at that, it's still moving. There's something rather magical though, isn't there, about watching watercolour blend on a paper like that. It fascinates me. Oh, right into that corner I'm going to take it. And then again, once it hits that tape, I'm just going to give it a little wipe here. It is difficult. I'm on limited filming equipment here, so I'm just using my phone. If I had better equipment, then you'd be able to see exactly what I was doing. Okay, back onto the table. It's still very wet. And at this point, you do not want to dab it or touch it. If a fly comes along and buzzes right into the middle of your picture, you leave him there. You do not try and pick him up at this point, because you don't want to ruin a beautiful wash. And never, ever, ever go back in with a brush. There's lots to remember, isn't there? Okay, I'm just still going to move this around because the paint is still, I'm trying to show you on camera, it's still just moving, blending together. But yeah, if I left this on the table and walked away from it, I wouldn't have the results that we're getting now. So you are in control of your washes. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause my camera and I'm going to let this dry. Unless you're really enjoying watching paint dry. So I'll be back in a second. I skipped a little section because my phone decided to play up, but you've not missed much. I was explaining that I'd actually not put the hairdryer onto my painting because washes like this like to dry naturally. And I've just started this little section here. And what I'm doing is I've took the blue and I'm just putting in a little kind of group of trees here with the blue wash. And while that's still wet, a little bit of that yellow, and we'll pull that yellow across. I want to put a nice big tree here on this side, so we're going to bring this wash down into this area. Take a bit of red if you like and mix that in and create an orange. As long as this wash is kind of a little bit stronger in colour than your sky wash, let's take a bit of blue into that as well, why not? Oh, and look, we're getting a lovely green there. As long as you are cleaning your brushes and allowing that colour to mix naturally on the paper, you should get nice clean washes. Let's take some of the red. Oh, and let's introduce that. oranges and greens starting to happen there. A little bit at the bottom here. Maybe some more yellow. And maybe a bit more warmth, so we'll go in with the red. There's so many things you can do with this wash now. You could actually sprinkle salt into it if you like, to give it a bit of texture. What I'm going to do is I'd like to just wait for the sheen to go off the paper. So just letting that watercolour kind of sink in to the paper. So the sheen's just going to go off it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spritz it with my water bottle, and that's just going to create a bit of subtle texture for me. We're nice and dry now, and can you see how much texture we've created here just by spritzing with the water bottle into that wet wash and then allowing it to dry? It's given us this beautiful texture, so that's a real bonus. You can probably see here I've put a little rough kind of pencil sketch here of where I want to put our tree. Now, I don't draw in much detail, and really I did say there was no drawing, but I as an afterthought, I thought it's easier probably if you just get a pencil and just sketch in where you want your tree to be. I'm using the size 8 brush. First of all, we'll put in the tree trunks themselves. So we've got 3 primaries. How are we going to mix a colour with 3 primaries? Let's get a little scrap of paper. There we go. And when I'm trying this as well, by the way, I always use the same paper that I'm using here. This is just the back of an old painting. We all have them. We need to mix kind of, I'd say, like a ruggedy brown colour. So if I take some of the red, I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow and a little bit of the blue, and we mix them together. We're kind of creating a beautiful mud colour. Oh, that might be quite nice. A nice muddy colour. So let's start to think about our tree, and I'm putting it down here, so not quite on the top of the horizon line. It's just to kind of give us some middle distance. So there we go. I'm going to change brushes shortly. I just want to get the main trunks in. We'll have another one here. I'm using a rigger brush now, and I'm going to take that mixture, if it's not all disappeared on me, probably has, just make a little bit more. I mean, if you rub any 3 primers together, you're going to get dirt. It's a good example of why not to do it, really. There we go, bit muddy. And let's start to use our rigger just to put in some smaller branches. And actually I've mixed it a bit lighter, that one, so we could just drop that in as well, couldn't we? That's a bonus. Don't want it too high. I'd like it to kind of lean out into the landscape. You can see I've absolutely taken no notice of where I drew my shapes. A few more. Maybe make it a little bit darker at this point, and just put in some darker little branches. Maybe a wee bit here as well. I'm going to roll my brush around in that wash. In fact, I'm going to take some more of that wash, a bit more yellow and a little bit of the red, and just push my brush into that shape. Oops. Now, I can either use this brush or I could go back to the other one, so I'm going to show you both. So I'm using the rigger to create a little bit of foliage. So I'm picking up the blues and the muddy colour we made before. I can always pull another branch or two out if I like. Let's try it with this brush now. So we're mixing that muddy colour again. All those primaries together, bit of red, bit of yellow. And I'm ruining my brush now. I'm actually, can you see what I'm doing? I'm kind of mashing it up at the end, because that then, just that water bottle, that then is going to give me a way of creating some kind of texture and breaking that shape up a little bit. Back with the rigger again, just mixing some of that colour together to make a brown. I'd like just to pull out a couple more shapes branch-wise. There we go, it's looking a bit better now, isn't it? Maybe another branch from here. It's your tree, you can do exactly what you want to it. I'm going to give it a little bit of green underneath the bottom half of the trunks. Some more blue. In fact, I think I might just make the green. Let's make it a little bit warmer and take a bit of red into it. Just a warmer, more olive green, that, isn't it? That's nice. And I'm just going to pull some of that colour up into those shapes. Maybe a little bit down here. Cleaning my brush. And I'm going to run the paint or the water underneath here and let that blend again. Letting it blend into that landscape so it almost disappears into that section. There's a couple more branches I just want to touch up while I still can, while it's still wet. Just a few. Can you hear the dog barking? Sorry about that, that's my dog Dylan. Take a little bit of the blue. I'm just going to drop that into the bottom half of there. Now, there's so many things you could do to continue this painting. You could introduce more colour into that foreground perhaps. Maybe suggest some flower shapes, but I kind of like it as it is, and let's not get too carried away. This is supposed to be a simple landscape. Maybe just a couple little posts just to bring us in and through that picture. A little bird maybe, and then I think we're done. Just a bit of the blue. Really, I am just going for this mixing all colour together and creating a muddy colour. Let's just put one, just we'll go for rule of threes. And there we go. Our super simple landscape. It is going to take a bit of practice, but please, please don't give up on those washes, honestly. Just keep practicing them and it will become second nature, and keep it simple. This is very, very simple. We've not tried to be too clever. We haven't used a reference photograph, but hopefully as well, I hope you enjoy it, because that's what painting's all about. And thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed it, by the way, please, please, please remember to press the red subscribe button. I'd truly appreciate that. Take care, stay safe.